The sigh came first. Not the kind you plan. The kind that escapes before you even know you're carrying something. I sat on the edge of the bed at 5:47 in the morning, both hands pressed against her head like she was trying to keep her thoughts from spilling out onto the floor. She hadn't moved yet. Hadn't stood up. Hadn't checked her phone. She just sat there, feet hovering above the cold tile, frozen by a list that hadn't even been written down but was already screaming inside her skull. Her 3-year-old had a low-grade fever last night. Not hospital level. Not emergency room serious. Just enough to make her check his forehead 6 times before she finally fell asleep. The deadline she'd already pushed twice at work was now officially 2 days late. Her boss hadn't said anything yet, but the silence was louder than any email. Her mother-in-law called yesterday about TET plans and somehow managed to wrap disappointment in a voice so sweet I felt guilty for feeling stung. And the bank account? She checked it before bed. 1.2 million dong. That's it. That's the fortress standing between her family and zero. So no, she wasn't getting up yet. She wasn't ready to face any of it. The room was still dark, that strange in-between darkness where night hasn't fully surrendered to morning. Her husband slept beside her, breathing deep and steady, completely unaware that his wife was drowning 2 inches away. Her chest tightened. It wasn't a heart attack. She knew what those felt like because she'd Googled it at 2 a.m. 3 weeks ago when the stress first started sitting on her ribs like a concrete block. No, this was different. This was the physical weight of thoughts that wouldn't stop racing. I have to call the pediatrician. No, first I need to send that report. But the report isn't done. What if his fever gets worse? What if I have to take him to the hospital? What if the boss finally calls? What if my mother-in-law tells the whole family I'm disrespectful? Why am I the one who has to carry all of this? Why does he get to sleep while I sit here making lists in the dark? The thoughts didn't come one at a time. They came in waves, crashing into each other, tangling into a knot she couldn't untie. She wasn't just tired. She was exhausted in a way sleep couldn't fix. This was soul deep. This was the kind of tired that makes you cry not because something terrible happened, but because nothing terrible happened and yet everything still felt too heavy. But this morning, before the day demands anything from you, breathe. Watch what happens next. The camera slows down. Everything goes quiet for just a moment. Mai's hands, which had been gripping her head like she was holding herself together, slowly loosen. Her fingers uncurl. They rest on her knees, palms up, open. A single tear rolls down her cheek. Not the ugly cry kind. Not the breakdown in the shower kind. This tear is different. It's not born from pain. It's born from sheer, absolute exhaustion. It's the tear that falls when you've run out of words, run out of strength, run out of the ability to pretend you're okay. Pause right here. Look at her. Really look at her. Because here's the mirror moment. This isn't just my story. This is your story. This is the morning of millions of people who opened their eyes today and felt the weight before their feet even touched the ground. How many times have you woken up and your mind was already running a marathon while your body hadn't even made it to the bathroom? The tuition payment that's due next week. The text message you still haven't answered because you don't know what to say. The argument with your sister that's been simmering for months. The business plan that looked so solid on paper but is now wobbling like a chair with one short leg. Your father's test results. Your mother's memory slipping. The unread emails. The unanswered prayers. The feeling that everyone needs something from you and you're running on fumes. Name them. Go ahead. The worries have names. They have faces. They knock on your door at midnight and they don't care if you're sleeping. Here's the truth nobody tells you. The weight you're carrying didn't come from one massive tragedy. It came from accumulation. Tiny fragments. Little pebbles of stress that you picked up one by one, day by day, until your pockets were full and your shoulders were breaking. Each worry by itself seems manageable. One pebble? Light. No problem. But the bag? The bag is full. And you've been carrying it so long you forgot it was even there. You think this is just what life feels like. You think the tight chest and the racing thoughts and the constant mental checklist are normal. They're not. You weren't designed to carry this. Mai isn't weak. Neither are you. She's carrying pebbles God never asked her to pick up. She's trying to be the provider, the protector, the perfect daughter-in-law, the reliable employee, the ever-present mother, and she's collapsing under the weight of roles that were never meant to rest on her shoulders alone. There's a verse. An ancient truth that cuts through mornings like this like a blade of light through those curtains. Isaiah 26 verse 3. It says something so simple, so profound, that it almost feels too good to be true. God will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in Him. Read that again. Not the people who have it all figured out. Not the ones who never worry. Not the super spiritual elite who wake up at 4 a.m. and pray for 3 hours. No. The steadfast ones. And what does steadfast mean here? It doesn't mean never getting distracted. It doesn't mean never feeling the weight. It means continuously turning back. Again and again and again. Your mind wanders? Turn it back. Fear creeps in? Turn it back. The list starts screaming? Turn it back. Steadfast isn't about perfection. It's about direction. It's the decision to anchor your scattered thoughts to the only one who can hold them. So here's what you do. Right now. Before you check your phone. The phone screen glowed. 6:02 a.m. The message sat there like a grenade with the pin already pulled. Chimai, Homne Hop Lucate H, No Mang Boutsao Q2. The Q2 report. Unfinished. Sitting on her laptop. 23 tabs open. Data she hadn't cross-checked. Slides she hadn't designed. A summary she hadn't written. And here she was, unshowered, still in yesterday's clothes, with a feverish child breathing through his mouth because his nose was completely blocked. Her brain did what brains do when they're drowning. It started screaming. Not with sound. With thoughts. Thousands of them. Like fire ants crawling through her mind, and every single one of them biting. You're going to miss another deadline. Remember what happened last quarter? Remember how your boss looked at you? Your mother-in-law was right. You can't handle this. You're irresponsible. You're failing. Other mothers keep their children healthy. What's wrong with you that your son is always sick? Look at you. You haven't even showered. You're disgusting. You're going to lose this job. Then what? Then what will you do? But then something happened. Something small. Almost invisible. She remembered 10 seconds ago. She had put her hand on her chest. She had breathed. And she had said, "I'm here, God." She didn't say, "Fix everything." She didn't say, "Give me a miracle." She didn't say, "Make my boss nice and my child healthy and my report finished." She just said, "I'm here." And in that tiny, almost pathetic act of showing up, something shifted. Not the circumstances. The circumstances were still a dumpster fire. The report was still unfinished. Her son still had a fever. The meeting was still at 8 a.m. But something inside her shifted. She wasn't alone in the fire anymore. Now, let's pause here. Because this is the moment where everything changes, and most people miss it. Right now, in your mind, there is a battle happening. And the scariest thing about this battle is that you don't even realize which side you're fighting for. There are two voices. Always. Two voices competing for your attention, your belief, your soul. The first voice sounds reasonable. It sounds like responsibility. It says things like, you need to worry about this. If you don't worry, nothing will get done. If you don't stress, you're being careless. If you don't obsess, you don't care enough. This voice has been with you so long you think it's you. You think it's your conscience. You think it's being a good employee, a good parent, a good spouse. But it's not. It's fear dressed up in a suit and tie, pretending to be your assistant. The second voice is quieter. So quiet you can miss it if you're not listening. It doesn't scream. It doesn't shame. It doesn't remind you of every mistake you've ever made. It just says, I'm here. You're not alone. We'll figure this out together. That's the difference between responsibility and burden. And this distinction will either save your life or crush you slowly over decades. Responsibility is what God gives you. It's the work you're called to do. The people you're called to love. The tasks you're called to complete. Responsibility can be prayed over. Responsibility can be planned. Responsibility can be acted upon. You can take responsibility, break it into pieces, and say, okay, God, I'll do this part. Show me the next step. Burden is what you pick up that God never handed you. Burden is the weight of outcomes you can't control. Burden is the fear of what might happen. Burden is the voice that says, if you don't carry this, nobody will. If you let go, everything will fall apart. Burden cannot be prayed over because burden doesn't want prayer. Burden wants control. Burden is you trying to be God in your own life. Mai had been carrying burdens for years and calling them responsibilities. She thought the constant anxiety was just what motherhood felt like. She thought the racing thoughts were just what career women dealt with. She thought the tight chest and the shallow breathing were normal. They weren't. They were symptoms of a woman who had quietly, privately, every single morning, torn up her contract with God. And that's when the memory hit her. Her grandmother. A woman who had lived through war. Who had buried a husband. Who had raised 5 children alone. Who had seen things Mai couldn't imagine. And yet, this woman had a peace that didn't make sense. It was almost offensive how calm she was. While everyone around her panicked, she would sit there, drinking her tea, looking out the window like she had a secret the rest of the world didn't know. One day, teenage Mai, stressed about exams, about boys, about her future, had asked her, "Grandma, how are you never worried about anything?" Her grandmother had laughed. Not a polite laugh. A deep, knowing laugh that came from somewhere ancient. Then she pointed one finger upward. Just one finger. Toward the sky. "Because I signed a contract with God a long time ago," she said. "My part is to do my best. His part is to handle the rest. And sweetheart, let me tell you something. God has never broken a contract. Not once. Not ever. I've been doing my part for 83 years. He's been doing his part for 83 years. And his track record is perfect." Then she leaned in close, like she was about to reveal the secret to the universe. "You want to know why you're so tired? Because you keep doing your part and his part. That's too much for anybody. Even God only does God's part." Mai had nodded at the time, thought it was sweet, and went back to stressing about her exams. She didn't understand. She was 17. What did she know about contracts and burdens and the slow, crushing weight of trying to control things that were never hers to control? But now, sitting on the edge of her bed at 6:03 a.m., with a sick child and an unfinished report and a boss who was probably already composing her termination email in his head, she finally understood. She had torn up the contract. Mai's hand touched her son's forehead. Still warm. But not that terrifying, oven-hot warmth from 3 a.m. This was different. This was the warmth of a living child, breathing steadily, chest rising and falling in a rhythm so peaceful it almost made her weep right there. He looked like an angel. Not a sick kid who was going to ruin her deadline. Not a problem to solve. Not another item on her impossible to-do list. An angel. And that's when something cracked open inside her chest. She had been looking at her son all morning and seeing a problem. An obstacle. A complication in her carefully planned life. But in that quiet moment, with the morning light just beginning to seep through the curtain, she saw something entirely different. She saw a soul. A small, precious, eternal soul that God had placed in her care. Not her possession. Not her project. Her gift. Her sacred trust. And when your perspective shifts, the weight shifts with it. She leaned down, pressed her lips to his forehead, that warm, soft, still alive forehead, and whispered words that surprised even her. Father, thank you for my son. Today I choose to trust you with his health. I choose to believe you love him more than I ever could. And I choose to release this fear into your hands. No supernatural voice echoed from the ceiling. But something had shifted. Not in the circumstances. In her. She straightened up, walked out of the bedroom, and stepped into the living room where the morning light was now painting golden streaks across the floor. And for the first time in years, Mai couldn't hold herself upright anymore. She sank to her knees. Not because her religion required it. Not because someone was watching. Not because she was trying to be a good Christian. She knelt because her soul had run out of standing power. Her legs, the spiritual ones, had given out. And the only posture left was surrender. Real surrender. God, she whispered, and her voice cracked on that single syllable. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I don't know how today is going to work out. I don't know how I'm going to finish that report. I don't know what my mother-in-law is going to say when she calls. I don't know where the money for Ted is coming from. I don't know if my son is going to be okay. But you know. You know all of it. And my grandmother told me something I finally understand. My part is to do my best. Your part is to handle the rest. Tears. Finally. The one she'd been holding back since 5:47 a.m. I choose to trust you today. Not because I feel like it. Not because I understand. But because you've never broken a contract. Not once. Not ever. And now, right now, wherever you're, maybe still in bed, maybe in your car, maybe hiding in the bathroom just to get 5 minutes of silence, I want you to join me in this prayer. Put your hand on your chest. Right over your heart. Feel it beating. That heartbeat is proof that God isn't finished with you yet. Close your eyes if you can. If you're driving, keep them open, but turn your heart toward the Father. And pray these words with me. Not at me. With me. Father. I bring you my mind today. Every racing thought. Every worry that's already sprinting ahead to tomorrow. Every fear that's trying to write a story you never authored. I refuse to let anxiety lead me today. My mind belongs to you. I surrender it now. I bring you my work. The deadlines. The emails. The meetings. The decisions I don't know how to make. The report I don't know how to finish. I will work hard today with all the strength you give me. But I will not carry the outcomes on my shoulders anymore. The results are yours. My job is faithfulness. Yours is fruitfulness. I bring you my family. My spouse. My children. My parents. My in-laws. I love them, you know I love them. But I cannot control their lives. I cannot make their choices for them. I cannot protect them from every pain. So I release them into your hands. You love them more than I do. You see what I cannot see. I trust you with the people I love most. And Father, I bring you my future. The things I don't know. The things I don't understand. The things I can't see yet. The January bills I don't know how I'll pay. The diagnosis I'm waiting on. The relationship that's hanging by a thread. You are already there. You're not waiting for me to figure it out. You've gone ahead. You're making a way. I trust the road I cannot see because I trust the one who built it. In the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Now let me give you something solid to stand on. Something that isn't just a feeling. Because feelings lie. Truth doesn't. Isaiah 26 verse 3. You heard it earlier. But now hear it with new ears. The Lord will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on Him. Perfect peace. Let's be honest about what that doesn't mean. It doesn't mean the storm stops. It doesn't mean the diagnosis disappears. It doesn't mean your boss suddenly becomes an angel. It doesn't mean the money magically appears in your bank account by noon. Perfect peace means peace in the middle of the storm. Peace that doesn't make sense. Peace that outsiders look at and say, "How are you not falling apart right now?" It's the kind of peace Jesus had when He was asleep in the back of a boat while a storm was trying to sink it. The disciples, grown men, some of them professional fishermen who had been on that sea their whole lives, were screaming. Panicking. Convinced they were about to die. And Jesus? Asleep. On a cushion. Not because He didn't know about the storm. Not because He was in denial. Not because He was disconnected from reality. He slept because He knew who controlled the wind and the waves. And He knew they answered to Him. Here's what I need you to understand before we finish. This isn't just a nice story. This is your reality right now if you belong to Jesus. The same Jesus who slept in that boat is in the boat with you. Right now. In your storm. In your chaos. In your unfinished report and your sick child and your impossible circumstances. He's not panicking.